Hi, Shannon O'Flaherty here. As it's bonfire night here in the UK and election night in the US, I thought this would be an appropriate time to talk about safety and security. Where did you get your safety and security from when you were born as a little kid? And you might be thinking, what safety and security? Well, there is that too. A lot of people feel fundamentally, and you might not even realize it or honor it as a safety issue, but fear stems from not being safe, comes from that birth imprint. So if your parents were crazy, if your parents were not happy, if they were fighting and screaming, or if they felt very insecure in themselves or insecure as a parent or in some other way, they might not have been instilling in you a feeling of safety. So many of you maybe know my birth story by now. Many of you probably have heard about the woundings with my parents and healing and overcoming all of those. But what happens is that you will have bonding. The mother bonding with the baby is the most important because you've been inside her. But if you have a present father who is really a hands-on dad and really there for you, especially when you're a baby and taking care of the feeding and the changing of the nappies and all of that stuff, that bond can happen with the father as well. Some schools of thought say, yeah, he's just a bystander until about the time that you're 2. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I was born very sick. I had digestive issues. My mother chose not to breastfeed. They couldn't find anything that I could keep down until finally they found goat's milk. So I was a screaming, unhappy baby for the first 6 months of my life. And my mother had already had quite the problems getting me to human form. She had to stay in bed and stand on her head every hour on the hour. And so my father, and she had a toddler, my sister, to look after. So my father was the calm, quiet parent. And not that I remember this, but he tells me, and I've grown up with this story, that my dad's very tall man, and he would put me on his arm like this, holding my little baby head in his hand, and the rest of me kind of balanced on his arm while he'd be shaving in the morning. And he'd talk to me and sing to me. And he said that that was our bonding time in the morning together. So there was this quiet time of connection with my father that instilled in me a sense of safety and holding that I didn't have with my mother, for all of the reasons I didn't have it with my mother. So even though I've said in past videos that my father is the source of my wounding, yeah, he is on some other levels, but guess what? He's also the source of my safety and security. So, okay, great. You're all thinking, yeah, great. So who cares? So I go through life. How does this manifest in life? Having my father be the source of my safety and security. For me, it was literal safety, literal security. And all of my kind of feminist friends would be like, what is with you? You're like a 1950s housewife. You give up your power to men all of the time. And I was like, yes, I know, because I do. Because I grew up in the 60s and in the United States in the 60s, and daddy went off to work every morning and mommy stayed home. Now, my mom was a working woman all of that time, but I saw these roles from the 1950s established with my father and with my mother. And that's what I grew up knowing, and that's what I grew up wanting. I wanted the man to be the strong man and to provide the safety and security that I was looking for. Now, where I got confused along the way was that I wasn't looking for this on a material level, not at all. I was looking for the strong masculine. I was looking for the safety and security to be met where I'm at, for somebody who would always have my back, for somebody who was always going to support me emotionally, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, and yes, when I was younger, materially, and even in adult years, materially. My father is perhaps the most generous man I've ever met in my life. And so your imprint of where you got your initial safety and security from can manifest in your life in a multitude of ways. And you can confuse that safety and security with literal safety, like old school manners. Put your cape down, protect me from the splashing puddle when a carriage goes by, or jump in front of bullets for me, or material safety, pay for everything, or take care of me financially. I've certainly given up my power to men that way in my life, which wasn't good for me because we, as strong, independent, aligned, strong feminine women, need to be able to take care of ourselves in all aspects. But what I see in my children and the men that I've raised with my children is how supportive they are of their wives in the strong masculine sort of way, that they're not going to take away their women's power. They're going to support their women in becoming the best versions of themselves. So it's a really good idea to look at where your safety and security comes from. Because when we have a strong foundation of safety and security, even if it's a little warped and you haven't quite figured out how it's really manifesting, this is to make you think about how your safety and security has manifested, or if you don't feel like you have any, why not? And where can you find it from? Because this is something we can generate in ourselves. This is all knowledge, and so much of it comes from our birth imprint. So look at where you got your safety and security from. See how it's manifested for you on the material level, on the physical level in your life, where you live, what's your community, your self-nurturing. Safety and security hits us at every single level there is. I mean, look at the world now. Hopefully we're going to have a safe election moving forward. And bonfire night, they're celebrating up the blowing up of Parliament, which is kind of strange British tradition here, but another great excuse to have fireworks and stand out in the cold with some hot spiced wine. Anyway, I encourage you all to look at your safety and security, where it stemmed from, who you got it from. And if you don't feel like you have it, why don't you book a call with me and let's see how we can help you establish that in yourself, or unpick ways that you do have it that you're just not noticing anymore. Because with a strong foundation of safety and security, it allows us to move forward with confidence, being the best version of ourselves all the time. I love you all so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.